is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the blow, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show. Better River sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Well, good day to everyone. It's Betting Weekly Live. It's Tuesday, the 12th of November. You with Steve Wyss, and Director of Content is with me, Nigel Seeley. First of two shows with me and you this week. Nigel, how's things going? How's it going?
Good, mate. Good. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's very, very quiet weeks, isn't it? When there's no football, soccer to talk about, it's very, very hard to come on these shows. But obviously, it's the final week of the tennis, which is why I'm on here. The ATP Tour finals. There's not much else going on in the world of sport. Obviously, American sports are great, but this side is quite good. It's got dreary. I'm just hearing one of the guys, producers, back saying it's 90 degrees over in where he is in Louisiana. It's what I would give to be over there at this moment in time. Still, I want to be here with you. Don't get me wrong. I like to be sitting here with you, but what I would be give to be sitting there in 90 degrees heat. Oh, well, that'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Well, I was in the sauna yesterday in my gym. I mean, that's the only place we're getting any heat in Yorkshire right now.
Oh, dear.
So, not a sauna fan.
No, just the thought of you being in the sauna. I love a sauna, but you being in the sauna just maybe go a little funny then. I love a sauna. Oh, God,
no. Right, yeah. Welcome everyone. Rick, Disky, Duncan, two Duncans actually we've got. Felix as well. Great to see you. We're going to be talking about tennis today, the ATP finals in Turin. But before that, there is one quick question here from just known as S. Any idea why Greece are 10-11 double chances against England, even though they've got so many key players out? What do the bookies know that we don't?
Well, I went to the match at Wembley when England played Greece in the reverse fixture, and it was 90 minutes of my life that I'm never ever getting back. It was probably the worst performance. The atmosphere at Wembley was the worst atmosphere I've ever been into. The manager's completely, Lee Carsley sort of knows he's not going to be in the job. He's going back to the under-21s. I think that England, whenever England play, whoever they play, they're always priced up artificially high. Greece are exceptionally strong at home. The only thing I would say is that the Greeks don't necessarily have to win the match, do they? So that brings in the double chance, I suppose. But England have to go out and win it. And usually when England play on the front foot and don't sit back, they tend to be a better watch. And England are a much more exciting side. I've travelled around watching England many, many times. And England's best performance are usually away from Wembley. Wembley is a horrible place. The atmosphere is really weird. You go to an England match in a Nations League match, the average age is about 16. I mean, there's a lot of kids there. It's like a schoolboy kind of feel. They should be playing those matches at Old Trafford, St James's Park. It's not great. And England do play better on the road, I must admit. So that could potentially be one of the reasons why. Would I bet England? I would not bet England at all. I mean, they're looking ahead now to Thomas Tuchel coming in. They've got the World Cup qualifiers coming up in next year, and it's end of the season. And a lot of players are involved in the Man City players aren't playing very well. All the Arsenal players are rested. So, yeah, it wouldn't be a bet for me. But being a proud Englishman, I couldn't bet Greece minus 110 on the double chance. So, however much I do think there's probably a bit of value, but you know what? It's a football match. You wouldn't even watch it. I wouldn't even. I'm not even bothered about it really.
Well, no, I've got to say the Nations League isn't really getting my juices flowing, Nigel. And there's been so many injury call-outs, not just for England, but across the whole of Europe. So, I mean, more of that on Thursday. But
the other thing, Steve, sorry to interrupt, they're not going to put in. A lot of these players aren't going to be putting in like the regular kind of tackles that they have, given where they are. You know, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool players involved. There was going to be a huge title race. Big Champions League matches coming again in a week's time. They're not going to be putting in. For the Greeks, It's a massive opportunity to beat England at home, and it'll be a raucous atmosphere. And I think that bet is probably the value.
Yeah, I mean, that's why people are more, some of the shrewd bettors out there are more interested in betting on the African nations qualifiers, because at least something's actually at stake in those games. But yeah, anyway, more on that on Thursday when me and you are on. On to the tennis. There's been a result today. Medvedev beat de Minaur 2-0. And there's one later game, and now Sean Calvert gave his thoughts about this match earlier. Yesterday on Betting Weekly Live. Jannik Sinner against Taylor Fritz, and Sinner's minus 670 on the money line. You can get Fritz at plus 480. The spread minus 4.5 here on Sinner, and the game's line 21 and a half. I can tell you now 82% of the tickets are on Sinner. I thought there might be a few more than that actually, Nigel, but the spread money, 72% of the tickets are on Fritz on the spread. So maybe Fritz is a bit of a public dog here, at least on the spread, at least. How do you see this match going?
Well, Sean Calvert's already given his opinion here, and I've worked with Sean today on a podcast Betting Weekly game bet match, which will be out a little bit later on after this show. You'll be able to get it on the YouTube channel. But from my perspective here, Jannik Sinner is the world number one. He's been the best player by far this year. He's been exceptional, and he's got better. He started off obviously winning the Australian Open, and he's got as good towards the end of the year as he was at the beginning of the year. A lot of people look tired. He doesn't look tired, and he was the one player that everyone used to think that worries with his physicality. He's had no problems at all this year. It's the other players that have fallen by the wayside. He is playing at home in Turin. I was there last year, and I was there the previous year as well. And he should have won the tournament last year. He had the opportunity to knock out Novak Djokovic. If he lost the match, he would have knocked Novak Djokovic out because the way the group works. And he actually won the match, which meant Novak Djokovic come in, and he played him in the final and lost. So Sinner is, talk about motivation. There's a lot of money at stake, but Sinner's absolutely huge. He wants to win this. He didn't play in Paris last week. He saved himself for this tournament, and he looked pretty impressive in his routine win over Andre Rublev. Who did he play in the first round? He played Alex de Minaur, didn't he, in the first round? He played, Alex de Minaur. He was very, very routine win over there. So it's going to be very hard to find a way to oppose Jannik Sinner. Bet Rivers have 42 different markets available on this match. Jannik Sinner is a minus 670 favourite. The last time they met was in the final at the US Open, and Sinner started around about minus $4 for that match. I know it was best of 5, which is slightly different as well, but it's a big difference between minus 4 and minus 670. Fritz, I think the court conditions will suit him. It's fast, but it's not really, really fast. It's a little bit quicker than last year, but it slowed it down a little bit. But I think this is, I think Sinner will win. But I think getting with games could be the angle I like. Over 21.5 games is minus 129. I would expect the first set to be very, very close. And I can understand the reasoning behind the spread, because when you have big servers like a Fritz, or you have big servers in previous tennis, you have big guys, and Petri Perregard, who's a biggest server on tour. You have Hurkacz, who's another big server. They play an awful lot of tie breaks. It's very hard to break them, but they can break them in the tie breaks. And so the set matches are usually quite tight. So when you get a 4.5 or 5.5 against a big server, it's very hard to cover that spread as the underdog. He can win it, but he could probably win a set 7-6, maybe, and then win. He's got to win 6-2 to cover the spread. So when you get big handicaps, I always like to be with the dog, who's a big server. So I can see the logic behind that, but I think if we're playing into that kind of market, I like the bet I've had tonight is I've bet over in set number 1, over the total games in set number. I've bet over 10.5 in set number 1. I think that would be the angle of attack for me. I expect it to be quite close in the first set, but then I would expect Jannik Sinner to show his class, maybe win the first set in a tie break, and then once he's won that first set, I think he'll kick on in set number 2, win quite easily. So set 1 overs would be my bet. And the other bet I quite like, given how well these two served in their first match, is a tie break in the match. Plus 118, a tie break in the match. I think that could possibly be a little bit of interest as well.
74% of the money is on the over. 21.5 games. So overall is more popular in that way. It's not been a great day for the better so far, though, on the tennis, Nigel, because nearly $20,000 has been lost on Alex de Minaur. Some of the biggest bets of the day were... That was mine and Sean. Some of mine and Sean Calvert's money was on them. Was on that one. A lot of, it sounds like he's let a lot of people down. And another player who let people down on Monday, there was a big loser on Carlos Alcaraz, just on the money line. Nearly $20,000 straight up with one bet. We're going to talk about him now as we go into the group tomorrow, and this is the John Newcomb group. Yeah. And I actually had to Google him. I'd never heard of him.
Never.
I mean, I've been, a bit embarrassed by that actually, Nigel. I consider myself to be quite knowledgeable down the years, but I'd never actually heard of him. Anyway, Alexander Zverev is now the favourite to win this group, -175. Alcaraz +225. Ruud at 6-1, and Rublev is 20-1 bar here. I mean, first of all, in terms of the actual group, is there any value there for those who liked on the futures just for this group, do you think, or not? I mean, Alcaraz was ill, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think this is really, really difficult. I mean, Sean Calvert's tipped up Alexander Zverev to win the tournament on game bet match at 7-1, so we're in good shape there. I just watched that Diminor match. Before we go on to that match, I watched that group. I watched the Diminor match, and Medvedev was back to he was awful in the first match, and he'd come back totally motivated. Everybody expected him to really struggle today, but Diminor didn't look fit. He's had problems with hip injury throughout the year, and he didn't look fit. And Medvedev was well-deserved winner, won it easy. We did take +118 in that match, and Diminor went off around about -112, I think it was, -110, 112. So there was money for Diminor, but Medvedev was all over him and deserved to win that match. Alcaraz is the interesting one here because he's got like kind of cold. There's video footage of him emerged yesterday where he's sneezing and has a sneezing fit around the players at a press conference and a photo shoot. They have him practicing, and he's had to stop coughing and spluttering. And I just saw an interview there on the telly, and it was the coach of Grigor Dimitrov, who happens to be a British guy called Jamie Delgado, who played on the ATP Tour. And he's the alternate, and he's sticking around. And it was more or less implying that he thinks that he may get a chance. Whether it's tonight or whether it's tomorrow, I think Alcaraz wants out. That it would be my read. There's an awful lot of money at stake here. I think they get about $5 million for winning the tournament and money for winning the event. But Alcaraz is clearly not well. And I would expect if Alcaraz gets beat, which if he loses tonight, he's out of the tournament. If he gets beat, then he's not going to play in that third rubber. I can't see any way he would play in that. But this here is an interesting one because amazingly, if you look at this match, this interests the whole group. So Rublev and Ruud have had a terrible year this season. Awful season. Alcaraz at +225. I wouldn't bet it. And really, you can only make a case for Alexander Zverev at -175. A win tomorrow, he'll top the group, and with a little bit to spare as well. So I always come on these shows and try to think about how I can oppose a favourite or how I can look for value elsewhere. But really, it's very hard to oppose the German at -175. And I think if he tops the group, then there's a good chance he avoids Jannik Sinner in the semi-finals, because the winner of this group will play the runner-up of the Ilie Nastase group, and the winner of the Nastase group will play the runner-up of this group in the semi-finals, and he'll avoid them. So you're probably better off to bet him to win the tournament. But if he runs into Sinner, then he's going to be an overwhelming underdog.
So, I mean, Alcaraz now against Rublev then. This is the Rublev tomorrow. This is the first match on. And Alcaraz actually opened up as a -345 favourite.
Well, that price has gone again. That price has gone again, Sean. Steve, he's now it's -205 and -165. Oh, wow. And I still don't think the -1. I think the -165 Rublev will go. I'm not convinced Alcaraz will take to the court. I just got a feeling. Just watching that interview there, the Dimitrov camper there, he's the first reserve, and I think they may get an opportunity to play here. I'm not sure Alcaraz will play. So obviously, if you do take Rublev, but if he doesn't play, that gives Rublev a great chance to be favourite against Dimitrov. So you might want to look at Rublev to qualify, or Rublev to win the tournament, because his tournament odds will half in price if he doesn't play, because he'll be a -240 underdog here. But if he plays Dimitrov, he'd be favourite. So that might be the angle. But I just, if they do play, there is a chance Rublev can beat him, obviously. And he's one of the only players, Rublev, who's got a winning head-to-head record against Alcaraz. He leads him 2-1 in the head-to-heads. One of them was in an exhibition match many years ago. And he did beat him last year in Madrid on clay in Spain. Now, not many people beat Alcaraz on clay, and hardly anyone beats him in Spain. And he did. So Rublev is a problem. Is a person that's always given him problems. And we may have missed the boat on the price at plus 165. This was a guy who was 230 earlier in the day, but I do think that I am not 100% sure Alcaraz will take to the court, and if he does, he's definitely at 70%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking there, plus 165 on Rublev. I mean, is this like a free hit? I mean, just say the match does go ahead. Is he almost a lock to win the game? If Alcaraz is not anywhere near fitness,
it's factored in though, Steve. I mean, when they met in the quarterfinals in Madrid, Alcaraz was minus 500. So the price has been factored in. But I think if Alcaraz has got to turn around, an unbelievable turnaround in 48 hours from his illness. And you got to remember, Alcaraz hasn't had, since the Olympics, he hasn't had a good run. I mean, he got beat by Ruud here, obviously 6-1, 6-7-5. He got beat last week as a minus 700 favourite, or the week before last, as a minus 700 favourite against Hugo Humbert in Paris. Admittedly, the court was very quick, which Alcaraz doesn't like. He got beat in Shanghai by Mahak, which was another shock. He was minus 1,400 to win that match. And he obviously had the biggest shock of the tennis history when he was minus 2,000 or minus 3,000 when he played Botic van der Sandschulp at the US Open in August. So this guy is not playing well at the moment. He was a fade for me on the podcast when we started off, but we'll see what happens. But I'm not convinced he will play. And if he doesn't play, or you don't think he'll play, the definite move is to back Rublev now to win the tournament or to win the group, and then trade out if he doesn't play, because he will start a marginal favourite against Dimitrov. And at the moment, he's being factored in as a 2-1 dog. So that's the strategy if you're going to play in this match.
Yeah, a bit of wise advice there from Nigel Seeley. Just looking now at some of the comments. Charlie DeLucci, this is best bet of the night for him. Lincoln versus Man City under 21. Both teams score, yes, 4-6. That is a EFL trophy match.
Why?
I'd be interested to see the reason.
I'd like to know the logic. I mean, this is great, but I like to know some little bit of reasoning behind that. I mean, Man City under 21s against Lincoln. I mean, I'd bet Man City under 21s to beat the Man City first team the way they're playing at the moment. So I don't know what's going on, but I mean, this is a tournament that is, if you think about the lowest levels of like English football, this is pretty much it that you're looking around trying to find the bets on this. So I think it's just a nice week off would be my advice on the stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of matches in this EFL trophy. It's a bit of a minefield. You've got to wait to the lineup. It's good to see you, Ming. Ryan, great to see you as well. Duncan, it's making a very good point. It's made me laugh seeing this comment from Duncan. This tournament is a bit like Community Shield in terms of tennis, glorified exhibition event. I mean,
I've been to it, Steve. It's awful. You're either sitting next to a couple of 12-year-olds who want to run and get signatures, and I'm not interested in the tennis, or he's sitting next to a middle-aged or an aging retired housewife who doesn't understand the rules of tennis. It's absolutely awful. And like, it's not, Turin isn't the greatest place in the world, really. It's very quiet. So once the tennis is finished, there's nothing really to do. The city's pretty dead. But I'm sure next year and the year or the years to come, this will tournament be in Saudi Arabia, and it'll be in the heat, and it'll be very different, and it'll be a lot more money. But it is a glorified money event. It's a big money tournament with a lot of ranking points at stake, and that's it. That's all it is. There's much better bets on the year, and these players have been playing for 10 months, 11 months now. January all the way through to November. There's an exhibition tournament in Dubai that they play in December. They have like 2 weeks off. They must be absolutely exhausted, and a lot of these guys have had big injuries. And Alcaraz is a young man. He hasn't had the level since he won Wimbledon. His levels dropped. He got to the Olympics. He got beat by Djokovic in the final, and since then he's dropped down. He isn't the Alcaraz what we've seen. Sinner's gone to a different level. So interesting to see how it goes. But I'm in agreement with Jean here that I don't think that Alcaraz will participate. It's just my judgment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a random place to have it, is Turin. I think there was a bit more razzmatazz about the event when it was in London. I mean, Turin actually hosted the Winter Olympics. Winter Olympics, I do believe. So, quite a cold place, and it's. I mean, it's a long season. I was listening to some recent Game Bet Match episodes you did with Sean. I mean, he sounded exhausted enough as it was. So, let alone the players. Long season, 11 months. So, you got to factor that in here. And you're right, John does not think that this is going to be going ahead with Alcaraz involved. Duncan, have I ever heard of Nastase? No.
He's never heard of Nastase, no?
I'm getting exposed here, aren't I? By my.
So if I give you some tennis legends, we'll go back see your timescale. So we go back to like you've obviously heard of Andre Agassi.
Yes.
Pete Sampras.
Yeah.
Bjorn Borg.
Yeah.
Jimmy Connors.
Yes.
John McEnroe.
Yeah.
Rod Laver.
Yeah.
Oh, you've heard of Rod Laver? Oh, okay. I thought you wouldn't know Rod Laver.
There's an arena named after him, isn't there?
The Rod Laver, the Rod Laver Arena. I just wondered if you. I wondered. So your knowledge of the tennis and get back to the 60s and early 70s. I think you'd be struggling. Elias Stasi was an entertainer, Romanian guy, entertainer. He was a very, very entertaining tennis player that was like the first kind of real entertainer, and everyone loved watching him play. He was brilliant. Yeah,
Stan Smith. No, that's another no from me.
No, Stan Smith.
This is like one of Dan Roebuck's quizzes, isn't it? A bit different. Where was I going? Comedy Vault says Barcelona women against Bayern. Barcelona women and Bayern women versus Man City women over 2. So this is getting desperate now, isn't it? We're getting picks on Barcelona women's women and over 2.5 goals, and the lower league under 21 English. I tell you what, this is getting desperate stuff. You can tell it's we're scraping the barrel of it.
I just tell you a very, very funny story about former tennis players, and not American watchers probably won't understand this, but you'll get it completely. But if you're English, you'll understand this story. I was out once with a guy who was a snooker player, and his name was John Virgo. John Virgo is a friend of mine, and we went out for a lunch, and it was people could speak to the guy and ask questions, and we were talking about who was the greatest. So as you have conversations, who was the greatest NFL player, who's the greatest boxer, who's the greatest. So at the time, I was talking about tennis. I loved my tennis, and I said the greatest tennis player for me is Roger Federer. And this guy said, "No way." He said, "No way." He said the best tennis player was Ken Rosewall. Ken Rosewall, and I said, Ken Rosewall. I said, he's not going to be the best tennis player in the world. I said, no one will know who Ken Rosewall was. He said to me, Nigel, if you ask anybody here who Ken Rosewall is, they'll all know him. I said, they wouldn't. He said, I'll bet you £20 you ask someone Ken Rosewall, they'll know him. I said, they wouldn't. So I got this guy over. I said, can you do me a favour, mate? I said, do you know Ken Rosewall? And he said, it's where they play cricket in Hampshire. He thought it was the Rose Bowl. He was the Rose Bowl. I said, so I won the bet, and it was obviously Roger Federer. But that tennis legends do come anyway.
I hope you asked John Virgo where the cue ball was going. But
it's the cue ball.
Right, on to this second match then for Wednesday. This is Alexander Zverev against Casper Ruud. Ruud, who just beat Alcaraz as a 9-1 shot. But his odds have halved here, but he's still quite big, plus 480. Casper Ruud. Zverev a really short-priced favourite, and again the handicaps you're looking at 4.5 games. Games total is 21.5, and I'm guessing, Nigel, that this price is a lot to do with the surface. And that's why he's so short here.
It's a lot to do with Casper Ruud having a very, very bad last couple of months. Casper Ruud hadn't won a match for 2 months coming into this tournament until he beat an out of a very ill or a not a fit Alcaraz. And I think we've got to look at the level of that and think, did Casper Ruud play well, or was he given the match by Alcaraz? And if you look at the amount of errors Alcaraz made in that match, it was the equivalent of 4 games he was given on Alcaraz's errors. So he's not going to get that against Zverev. Zverev's serving the best he's done for years and years, pre-injured, when he got that very nasty injury. And I think he'll win. I think he'll win fairly comfortably. I'm looking at this match here, and if you look at the odds on this match, it's more or less exactly the same. Well, it is exactly the same as the match tonight between Sinner and Fritz. And I think that the Sinner Fritz match is probably a little bit more difficult than the task that Zverev has here. I looked at Zverev to win 2-0, and that was still minus 215. But for Casper Ruud, if he gets beat here, it's not a disaster. As long as he doesn't get beat really heavy, like 6-1, 6-love, he will still have the win from Alcaraz. He then goes into the final match against potentially Rublev, knowing could be a winner takes all battle. So it will see Zverev through, but Ruud doesn't have to necessarily. It'd be great for him to win it, but a defeat isn't a disaster for him, because then he'll play a match against Rublev where he's going to be more or less a pick-em match, and if whoever wins that will probably go through, depending on how the Alcaraz match goes this evening. So I think this is a good thing. Zverev will win. I can't see much case about it. 37 markets again with Bet Rivers. I would then perhaps be leaning to the over and set number 1. And the over in set number 1 here is 10.5. I think it's about 1 plus 185 or something like that. I'm very much of the belief in these kind of matches. When the first set comes in, they're very tight. They're very competitive. Once the favourite gets in, then the second set they run away. So I would go for that.
Gene Swart says Zverev should win, but you never know with Casper. He can turn up sometimes. 56% of the tickets are actually on Ruud so far. I mean, this is early days in the betting action, it must be said. But there's early signs that he might be a little bit of a public dog. If you had to have a best bet on either of those two games that we mentioned there, or today's fixture, or in one of the future markets, would you have a best bet on this show, Nigel, or is it tough times in Turin?
I think the bet for me now would be to bet over 10.5 Sinner Taylor Fritz this evening in set number 1. That would be where I'll be betting. And I would take the 28-1 now with Bet Rivers on Rublev to win the tournament. Not for any other reason that the fact that if Alcaraz doesn't play, or Alcaraz is not fit tonight, then there's a chance that he could play he could play tomorrow. Sorry, he could play an opponent he's going to be a heavy favourite to win, and his chances to get to the semi-finals will diminish, shorten very quickly. And I'd trade out of it. I'd get out of it and try to have a free bet. So I would go that.
Well, that concludes today's show on Betting Weekly Live. Join us tomorrow is the return of Jimmy Ott, who the last time Jimmy was on the show, he nearly gave a clean sweep of winners. We're going to be talking about NBA and also looking ahead to Thursday night football, where the bettors are hoping to get their money back, because last night on M&F, the Dolphins win was not a good one for the public at all. It's the second best match in NFL this year for the sportsbooks. So a lot of money was lost on that Dolphins victory last night. Let's hope to get it back. And Jimmy is going to be there to advise us tomorrow. And then Thursday, me and you are back on Betting Weekly Live, Nigel, looking ahead to all the brilliant Nations League action, South American World Cup qualifiers, stuff like that.
Well, you're our South American correspondent. I'll be looking at the depths of European soccer and concentrate on that England match. I do quite like that bet, though. The guy put up there 10-11 Greece. I mean, if I wasn't a proud Englishman, I'd be all over that. And I don't really care about this competition, and I don't think anybody really cares about this competition. I think it's all about the World Cup and the embarrassment that England had. But we're going to talk about that.
We certainly will.
We'll talk about. But I do think if anybody's watching, take a bit of that double chance. It could be a little bit of value there.
There's going to be 2 shows, I think, released today on the channel: the Dojo and also Game Bet Match. Am I right?
Yep, the Dojo should be live now. I think it's been live now.
Oh, is it already?
We're talking about a very interesting topic on there. We're talking about match fixing. Very interesting. The stuff that we've heard in the past about match fixing. Neil Channing has been around the industry, sports betting industry, for a long time, talking about match fixing. And obviously, if you work in the gambling sector, you can't put a message up, can you, without suddenly someone sending you this thing saying, "Oh, click here for fixed matches." What a load of rubbish that is. And we talk about the reasons about that. So yeah, it's an interesting show there. The Betting Weekly Zone should be reached now, and I think the tennis will be out probably even the next hour or so. So look, Sean's give his opinions on these matches as well. So it's quite interesting to see what he has to say. But I think tonight we're going to go over 10.5 set 1 Sinner best bet.
All right, well, take care, everyone. Hopefully see you very soon. And remember to like and subscribe and to gamble responsibly. And back tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live with myself and Jimmy Ott. Take care.